Everyone, welcome to another episode of the Searchcast. Today I have one of my favorite SEOs, an SEO I trust probably the most, the father of SEO himself, Mr. Bruce Clay. He is a keynote speaker at probably over 100 different conferences, including SMX, PubCon, and many others. Bruce, thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, absolutely. Glad to be here.
So this is a really crazy week with Google I/O. With kind of shook things up a little bit. I think the AI overlay came maybe a little sooner than most people thought, but I know it's something that you've been thinking about a lot. Having conversations with you going back, almost 2 years, talking about AI. You've actually developed your own AI content strategy, so I'm sure we'll touch on that. But initial thoughts of the Google I/O.
Well, I don't think Google has quite figured it out yet. Let's face it. I mean, they're doing hundreds of billions of dollars, trillions of dollars in ad revenue. They've got to be concerned that they're going to be stealing from themselves, right? It's a little bit, it's way out of line. And from what I've heard, they're a lot of people don't like what they see from Google. And I think that I just have to wait and see. I'm going through all the IO stuff that I can. I'll figure it out. But you know how this all works, right? They announce all this stuff and then none of it works.
Yeah.
And then, okay, some of it may work, kind of. And then they Google dance it. And then all of a sudden, there it is. And it's not quite the same, but oh no, that's the way it was always designed to be. And I don't have a lot of faith in any, by the way, this is any AI. I do not have a lot of faith that it won't adjust. So let me give, and this is just sort of a story that goes with that. I have PreWriter, my AI content tool, and I was able to demonstrate it last November in my booth at PubCon. I was
Yep.
showing people this is what we're working on. And since then, it is like 10 times stronger, 3 times more powerful. It does a lot of stuff, but back then, that wasn't what it was doing, right? And I mean, there's a lot of power in AI that wasn't there before. And it turns out that the price is dropping and you've got better capabilities, it's more detailed. Whatever Google is working on, 3 months from now it'll be different. And
That's the
three
world.
months after that it'll be different. And I have no confidence at all that this is the way it will always be. And
Do you think that Google puts too much stock into what SEOs are tweeting them or messaging them about how AI is this or that, and not enough weight into the general public? Or do you think it's vice versa? Google's taking too much advice from the general public and not enough advice from people that are using it every single day when they were beta testing?
I think Google listens only to Google. I what comes to mind is the Ford Edsel, a total failure because it was designed by people within Ford who didn't bother to ask anybody else what you think. And then they announced it and it failed. And I think that a lot of what we're finding, maybe there's some people queried, and maybe I hear this and maybe I hear that, but I think it's built by engineers uh, that are under a lot of pressure to get something done. They think they know what it is. They don't have time to do a 2 month study. So they apply their knowledge. They ask some people, and all of a sudden you got groupthink. And then if they implement that, they end up with something that nobody wants. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that you always face. But I think Google is facing it right now. Plus, it's a two-edged sword. The more AI they put out there, the less people are going to click on ads.
Yeah,
And that poses a big problem for Google. And the more AI you put out there, the farther you're pushing down organic. The farther down organic, you're cutting now into your own traffic base because organic is really why people come.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Google's been preaching to the SEO world for the last several years about helpful content, trust, authority. And then they put AI above the fold for some of these informational queries, these longer tail queries. But at the end of the day, Google has to figure out how to monetize that to some degree, right? But I think the question they have to consider is, as soon as you start monetizing AI search results, don't you kind of lose the trust? I mean, all the
Yeah.
studies show 70-80% of people still trust organic more than paid. And as soon as you start monetizing that stuff above the fold, it almost kind of goes, it kind of disappears to a certain degree. So I'm very curious to see how that. Do you have any predictions on how they're going to monetize that?
Well, I think that what they have to do is put in ad links within the results. And I just read in one of my, I think it was in Twitter this morning, how it was a query for top uh, SEOs or top SEO experts or some sort of query. And it was showing results where the person wasn't even close to an SEO expert. He had just said on his own website that he was an SEO expert, and Google chose to believe him,
He must have
right?
had a really strong Reddit profile or a really strong LinkedIn profile.
Something. Yeah, he put it everywhere, and all of a sudden it made it so. And, um, those are the kinds of things that I think are causing the industry to doubt. Because as soon as that happens, as soon as Google embraces this and they're publishing a lot of information at the top, if that information is at all questionable, now Google loses trust in Google,
Right.
right? And I mean, I'm going to go back to the beginning because, A, I was here at the beginning. 3 years before Google, there was no Google. And if you remember back then, everybody was on a modem. For those of us that immediately heard the sound of a modem when I said that, we were on modems and we were connecting to the internet through AOL or a service. And we were running Netscape. Think about that. Netscape, 70% market share. All of a sudden, along comes IE. They take over. Along comes Firefox. They take over. Along comes Chrome. They take over. People are fickle. They'll go with what serves them best. And if Google stops serving people best, people don't need Google. There's other search engines out there. And I think that what we're going to see is Google is going to get between a rock and a hard place. They have to maintain their revenue. They're a public company. And if they try to figure out how to put ads into AI type content, they're going to lose trust. They're going to drop revenue. They're going to preempt their own ads.
I think
They're going to have to counter it by themselves getting into the business. They're going to have to become a travel agent. They're going to have to be the company that you go to for hotels. They're going to have to be some of the capability that is, oh, you can do 100% digitally. I mean, there'll never be a hospital.
right.
Okay. They're not going to go to your house and repair your plumbing, or they're not going to be an auto mechanic, but pure information online purchasing. I can see that being how they make their money if they lose the money elsewhere.
Yeah, I think
And I think it's going to get ugly before it gets better.
it'd be a very serious calculated risk, right? Because then be alienating some of their biggest spenders the Travelocities and the Expedias and the hotels, all those booking sites, all the flight sites. So that would be crazy. I wouldn't be surprised to see them go that route, but again, that would be a very calculated risk because, like you said, it is their job to drive revenue, and excluding them would be very scary. I think for the first time in a long time, Google's kind of falling victim to what an everyday marketer does, which is trying to keep up with the Joneses. I think to your point, they have a very tricky situation where they're scared of losing market share to ChatGPT. Yet on the other hand, they put their reputation at risk. To your point earlier, most people come for organic search results because they trust them. As soon as you start losing that trust, that faith, and people start rallying behind it, they could be doing exactly what they were afraid of by rushing some of these advancements. So
Yeah.
I think it's spot on.
The one of the statistics I read was that their traffic is flat for the first time in like 800 million years, right? Their traffic is flat. Well, the traffic is flat, in my opinion, because they keep pushing down pixel by pixel the organic results. They survived for years with nothing but 10 blue links. They grew their whole business from it. And now, the more they push it down, the harder it gets. And uh, I think the overall statistic is that not more, this is MBA level stuff, right? Not more than 42% of any page can be an ad. Study every magazine, study every newspaper, 42%, not more than that, or you start losing share. So, how did they do it? They pushed it down and then they went to infinite scroll.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So they basically made the page longer in an area where nobody's going to go anyhow, right? And um, that's a fallacy. I mean, oh, yeah, we're under 42%. No,
Well,
you're at 42% and it's still terrible.
especially on mobile too, right? I mean, the screen sizes get considerably smaller than the 27-inch monitors I have at my desk. When you look at mobile, they encroach on organic search all the time, even through non-paid stuff. For example, the Google Business Profile update they did was like last month, where you can connect your social media profiles, which that's not so new, but the fact that they're putting the carousel, they're putting the post in there, and if you're on mobile and you do a branded search, you see, the knowledge graph, and you see the social media, and then maybe some paid, maybe the map, maybe then their website. You have to scroll pretty far to even see that. So I think,
Yeah, people have taken surveys of all the things that Google could put up there, and there's 42 of them. That's what they said. 42 different things. I mean, they could put weather, they could put news, they could put maps, they can put local pack, they can put so many things up there. And the interesting part about that has always been the way they do it. Um, they're tallying things within RankBrain so that if they have a local pack but nobody clicks on it, after a while it doesn't show up anymore. They try something else.
mm-hmm.
And a little variety here and there is a good thing, but if every time they do that the organic gets pushed down, that's a problem.
Yeah, it is. And I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier about, kind of the think tank model or not taking other people's advice. It's funny what they say publicly with, we've seen, much higher click through rates through AI. People seem to love it more. But if that's
Yeah.
like the case, then, a marketer, if you were to make a case like that, if I was a client of yours, be like, well, where's the data? Show me the data that proves that, right? Google is just such a monopoly that they can say, no, just trust us. The CTR is better. We're not going to give you any Search Console data to prove it out. Just trust us. So we know that they're working on. There is a long game. It's going to be monetization of some sort, but it is just kind of crazy to see the power that Google has and the reactionary kind of results that they're given. We'll see how it plays out. It is very fascinating. Even just the dichotomy between Google and ChatGPT. ChatGPT became super popular. Google overcorrected a little bit. They rushed Bard, put it in testing, and then what did people use ChatGPT for in the digital marketing world? To write ad copy, to do SEO copy, which was just trying to game Google. right? So it's kind of like this dog trying to catch its tail in a sense, and we're just kind of caught in the middle of it. So very fascinating.
Yeah, so I got into the Chat GPT when it really became generally available. And um, then I suddenly realized that's the way search should have been all along, right? I mean, I can ask Chat, take this keyword, give it to me in these five languages, and tell me which one is going to get the most traffic. Compound questions. And I could ask Chat and it'll do it. But I can't ask that of Google and get an organic answer or any answer that has the answer, right? Compound questions are fantastic in Chat. And um, it we're using a lot of different things in our application. Our application, the PreWriter thing is a pre-writer. I mean, we write things for writers, and then the writer finishes them, right? We do the research. We don't write the finished article. We do the research,
Is
and
PreWriter something you're offering to the public at this point?
it is in beta. Uh, Probably on Monday we're going to refresh the beta, and by end of month it'll probably be done. We've got some really, really powerful things that are in there. And but I'll give the example. I can take one keyword and then okay, give me a definition. Then take the keyword and definition. Now give me some synonyms. Now take the keyword definition synonyms. Give me some long tail. Now take that and do permutations and combinations. Now filter out the permutations and combinations that don't directly relate to the original keyword. Build a list of 20 keywords or 30 or 40 keywords. Then from there, build an outline. Silo the outline. Then from that, give me a draft. Then here's a list of 100 different things that may be done wrong. Analyze your draft with our 100 items, and every time one of them is wrong, correct your draft. So it becomes self learning, self correcting. Then it does all that. Then we come back and say, now, what is the outline?
I mean,
Now, from that, build a guide for how to do it. From there, do all this stuff. And it supports about, I think, somewhere around 80 languages.
yeah, no, I got to see it at PubCon. I mean, it's incredible though, leveraging the power of technology, and I think you're doing it at an elite level, which is so cool. It's cool for the community too, and I think as much as AI has evolved, technology's evolved, a lot of SEO hasn't evolved. If you think about what you just said in recap, it's capable of doing all of these things that were once manual efforts. But the thing that I respect most about you and the methodologies you brought into White Hat SEO is it's always started with the full search journey, right? Whether it was back in the day before AI or in today's world, you created the website silo, but that was essentially linking all of your content together from top of the funnel to the bottom, answering the full search journey. And now you're just kind of being able to do it in a different way by leveraging the power of AI. And I think that's the point that I want to make. SEO is evolving, but it's not really changing. A lot of the core fundamentals are still exactly that. It just takes smart people to leverage those existing
Yeah.
proven methodologies with the capabilities that we have today, which is so cool.
And as I commonly say, AI is a tool, not a solution.
I love that. You had a really good analogy at PubCon. I got to attend the talk about it was like mac and cheese and how pre-writer and content
Yeah.
kind of works together. Do you mind rehashing that?
Well, the way I had described it is for years it was a difficult thing to make a dinner. And then along comes the mac and cheese. And what made it really so popular was its ease of use, where basically you have the noodles and you boil them and you prep it and you add the powdered cheese and just add water and stir, right? Well, what we're trying to do is do the research stage at the front, and you just add writer. Very similar. Sort of like an instant meal. You got all your raw ingredients, but the writer is what finishes it. And that, I think, is a very important part. If you cut out the artist, you're not going to end up with anything that makes sense for you. The AI isn't going to know your voice. It isn't going to have lived with your company for 5 years, no matter how you have it analyze anything. It isn't going to understand which images to put on the page. It isn't able to finish and produce the final document, no matter what. And the difference between doing the research and finishing the writing and the editorial and the SEO and then publishing it, and versus it just guesses and generates something that looks good. I mean, it's a very different document you get at the end. And all it really is regurgitated content that happens to be in their LLM. And I think that's a big problem for everybody, that it doesn't work. So I've run a test. So I ran our tool and we got a page and I read the page and it made total sense. We run it through a series of other tools that make it come out, at least test, as human. We take out the footprints and watermarks and all that stuff, and it tests as human. So we were publishing it, and every one of them ranked. I mean, first page kind of ranked.
Right.
So I said, well, Google said you no longer have a problem if you're an AI content. It just has to be usable. So I took the same thing on a new post and I put it up, but raw AI. Couldn't find it in the first 5 pages. Waited, didn't show up, didn't show up, didn't show up. Went back, took it out, ran it through the humanizer. We made it come out 100% human, put it back, first page. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm going to be really hard to convince that Google thinks that AI is worthy of a top ranking.
I agree. At least, especially long term, I know people will get a flash in the pan and they'll get lucky. That sustaining power,
Yeah.
though, is what we all want. So I think you're spot on, right? I mean, they literally, I always say on this podcast, you invest in where Google's investing, not what they say, but what they do. So if you look back at the timeline, November 2022, Google changed, they softened their stance. They kind of said, "Oh yeah, no content. As long as content's helpful, we don't care how it's sourced. AI, human, as long as it's helpful." 1 month later, December 2022, Google says, we're changing EAT to EEAT, and the first E is going to be experience, because we know that AI content basically can't replicate experience. So what you're doing with PreWriter is, you're leveraging the power, and then you're actually having humans, polish it off, refine it, create the actual content, the meat and the bones of it, if you will, and that's what's going to get you the actual rankings that you're looking for, rather than just, if to your point, if you're using nothing but AI content, it's not actually helpful because it's not actually different than everything else that's already on the internet, right?
Yeah. It's
And
just, it's just, it's a little bit like a wild card replace, or like the old mail merge, right? If you're going from city to city and you're just substituting in the city name, we know that Google doesn't like that, right? They've had code eliminating wildcard replace stuffs for 800 years. They've had code for duplicate content for 800 years. Do you seriously think that they can't catch AI?
so
I mean,
you're saying in 2024, doorway pages are not coming back.
I don't think they're going to come back. Right.
Hot take here from Bruce Clay.
That's it. I would not invest in doorway pages. But okay, let's ask the question. What is the difference between a doorway page and an AI page if nothing there is creative, innovative, unique? It's just regurgitated other people's content, right? Well, you might get away with something if you're first. You might get away with something because the part of the algorithm that says, oh, look at all that fresh content, let's boost them. That part may help you. But once that is done, and you've got some aging on that content, and Google comes in and says, well, what's the quality? It's the same as everybody else.
Well, it's really interesting. It's a great point. I do a lot of site audits, and people that are I'll get a site for the first time, and they're like, "Hey, we were having really good success ranking." And I look at the timelines, and it's like starts right around Q1 of 2023, and I look at it, I'm like, "Oh,
Yep.
that's interesting. They got some improvement there." I'll check their blog, and it's like, "Oh wow, they get a huge volume of content. You went from posting once a month to 3 times a week, and all of these blogs don't have any images, and they're all in a weird number format. It's like clear signs of AI." And it lasted until like basically end of Q1 of 2023, and then a broadcore came and it wiped out all of their all of their traffic and
Yeah.
rankings that they once earned, and then even took even more because then Google starts, I think, looking at your whole site a little deeper, and it's like actually a lot of this content isn't helpful at all. So to your point, I think you get that initial pop from the freshness, maybe best case, but eventually it catches up, and then you're deleting a lot of that content. Which, as an SEO, if you're doing it right, you're doing like the silo method that you essentially created. All that internal linking you're doing, it takes time to do it and do it right. You're gonna have to go remove it, all because you had kind of like a facade of content on your website. So,
And the problem I think a lot of people don't consider is that a part of the reviewer guidelines, right? Part of that was talking about maintenance, talking about is it reasonably current, right? Query deserves freshness is sort of the concept. Well, all the things that Google applies to the YMYL, I never was able to figure out why they didn't just apply it everywhere, right? And it would seem to me that if they had it on some, they can have it on others. And so when you look at this EEAT and all those things, part of it is maintenance. Maybe it's MEEAT, meat, but there's maintenance in there. And what these people are doing is they're building thousands of inert pages that they either have to delete or maintain. They have to make better, or it's dragging down their overall quality average.
mhm.
And why would anybody intentionally drag down their own quality average? They can't. And not be in the top 10 out of 10 million. So you have no choice but to use the writer.
I
And
think
that's the part that always baffled me. How anybody today, it's still premature. You cannot say AI will write a finished article as well as a human.
unfortunately, what happens a lot of times is people put their trust in SEOs who, maybe aren't ethical or do white hat, or maybe they actually are just ignorant. They truly believe the AI is going to be totally fine, and then they get burned, right? So I don't think any SEO that knows their stuff is would ever do that. But it happens. It's probably what, like a 3 to 4 to 1 ratio of bad SEOs to good in the world.
Oh, I
Unfortunately,
think higher. Yeah.
yeah, it probably is. So I don't really have a case study on that, but just from personal experience, going to networking events, talking to people, it's got to at least be that high. So I think it's sad. A lot of businesses, especially small businesses, um, they understand that SEO is important, so they hire someone that sounds good on a pitch, and they hear buzzwords like AI, content marketing, ChatGPT, and they're like, "Yeah, that's it. That's what I've been reading about. That's what I want too. You can make me 100 articles in the next 3 months about my small dental practice. Perfect. Let's do it." Right? And then they get nowhere fast, and then they have a bad taste for SEO for someone that's
Yeah.
actually reputable. But going back to your point about YMYL, your money, your life, when Google talked about that when it first came out, they were saying, well, it just really opens up for misinformation or disinformation. So we have to kind of crack down on this, which is interesting because now, fast forward, what is it, 5 years later? And the search generative experience has a lot of misinformation or harmful information in there. So it's kind of interesting to revisit the timeline of what things, again, what Google has said versus what they do. It's a history repeating itself to some degree.
Well, it seems that's what I was kind of alluding to is if Google is basing their LLM on their index, which is clearly a very significant asset for them, they are motivated to apply the YMYL to everything. They're motivated to do that because they can't base their LLM on things they can't in turn trust,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think it's just a natural evolution that all of the Google YMYL and query deserves freshness. The last conference I was at, the PubCon, we had a meeting. All the speakers were there, and we had a meeting. And I said, when you're talking about links, why would a link you got 5 years ago be more important than the one you got last week? Links deserve freshness. Well,
Absolutely.
think about it. So I create a page, and it's a brand new page, has no trust. Google's going to give me the benefit of the doubt long enough to determine I'm garbage. And then all of a sudden, I just destroyed my YMYL for my whole site. And Google has to go in that direction or their LLM is worthless, right? That's why I think they did the big spam update, because they don't have a choice.
It was a purge.
It was a purge, and there was no choice. They have to make sure that the information available for their AI is the best it can be, and it still isn't, right? You can still somehow defraud it, but I think that AI is, yeah, it's here. It's going to stay. It's going to be important. It's going to be in self-defense. It's going to be at the top. It's going to be. It has to be voice search results. It has to be information-based results. I think it's going to displace all of the featured snippets. Well, I have a featured snippet. I can do my own AI routine. I think that featured snippets are going to drop. I think that perhaps even information results are going to drop, right? And fine, so you're going to have answers there. I think it's going to be a little bit awkward with pay-per-click, but does organic get pushed down? Maybe a little further. But I'm going to tell you right now, Google cannot survive without organic. The
Agreed.
biggest issue in organic, and I know you know this, the biggest issue in organic is there's no way for Google to have 5 million experts on staff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's interesting too about this AI stuff is when you're seeing the site links, they're often like passages. And you actually put me onto optimizing for passages about 2-3 years ago, which I hadn't really thought of in the way that you were kind of describing it. And that's probably a story for another time. But when you look at it, it's basically just passages that they're indexing for those long tail queries, and then they're citing it. So, I think the having a table of contents. I know there's a couple of threads on X and LinkedIn about that right now, whether it's worth it or not. But I think right now, in the current evolution of SGE, it makes sense to have the table of contents and have those optimized headlines, because those are, as long as it's a headline that would be served up in a way that people would ask a question, I think those are absolutely ranking very well. Now that could
Oh,
change.
yeah.
That could definitely change, but it is very interesting. So I think it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier. As flashy as everything is and as volatile everything is, it's evolving, but SEO hasn't changed. The best practices is still the fundamentals, which I think is just so interesting. You also touched on voice search in the IO. Google introduced the video search, where it's like a kind of like a multi-prong attack on the way to search something through video, and you also verbalize the search query. I think that's super interesting. Do you think that impacts the world of SEO?
I think it will. I mean, we've been able to impact it. For instance, the actual indexed content in a video is the transcript. And because the transcript is only 95% accurate, you have the ability to edit your transcript. And what we have found is at the bottom of the transcript, you can append a couple hundred words and it'll rank for them,
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
You don't have to have the verbal to go with it. You can just, as long as you got some blank time at the end of your recording, you can stick some words right in your transcript and you'll start ranking. So, and we do know that video snippets, and they have a start time, end time range, can be a featured snippet today. Well, just a matter of time until they're there. I think that you combine all these things, multimodal stuff, and multimodal is a big part of IO, right? They start talking about how you combine all these things into an intelligent answer. Well, of course, that's what that's what you want. I made a point of going through my site and I added 50 videos. And I have a whole bunch of Ask Us Anything videos which explain how to do things. 2 minutes each, how to do it,
Sure.
SEO. And my site has gone up from the time I started that, has probably gone up a third in
Wow.
top page rankings. The
I
number of, yeah,
I agree. I think multimedia in general is going to be so important. The example that they gave with that record player, with the it's like, how come this won't stay on the track? I think that's like a great example to show a good visual and the audio portion. But I think if you're a product specifically, if you're a product organization, you're going to have videos of part numbers and model numbers and part pieces, and you're going to have the textual version too, because as far as it's although it's easier for a user to maybe to do the search result, and maybe actually googling, like physically typing, might become archaic in the future. The way you get the results is still the same. Google is still a crawler or an index. They're still crawling all the pages on your site to determine the best answer, and that applies with both examples they showed. They also showed one that was like, find me a Pilates studios near me that offers new members a discount or whatever. But if you don't have that information on your website, i.e., SEO,
correct.
not going to be able to find it. So, I think SEO is arguably more important now than ever, even though the metrics might change. We might end up losing some of the traffic from those upper funnel searches. And for a lot of websites, that's 60, 70, 80% of all of your traffic is those,
Yeah.
viral blog posts. But that's just going to be more important than ever to get, again, to circle back, filling that full funnel, right? The whole search journey from start, initial query, to transactional process.
One of the things that I absolutely believe in is that chat has a tendency to be question centric, not keyword centric.
Yep.
In the beginning, it was keywords, and then it was more or less themes, right? And entities, but now it's becoming question centric. So I've restructured what an FAQ is. You've seen them on my website. It's now it's an answer, not a paragraph.
Yeah.
It's not a definition. It's an actual answer with steps to do it. And but the philosophy, even then, is you don't do it once. You do it across your site. I want to rank for SEO. I've got 1,000 questions that I now answer on my website. Well, what's Google going to think about who's the expert if you're the one that answers 1,000 different questions about the topic, right?
And you silo them together in
So,
the correct way.
right. And I think that Google is going to um, continue to evolve where the question gains strength as an important ranking factor over time. And, as it eliminates spam, as it looks for basically fractional answers, they now have it so that part of your web page can rank, or part of your website can be the expert, not the whole thing anymore. And you answer questions, and that's going to empower companies to have a higher ranking overall.
I agree. And if you think about just the original helpful content update, they were saying for the first time really that it's going to be a domain wide hit rather than a page by page. So I think that's just something to consider before you make the wrong decision investing in the wrong resources to improve your
Right.
SEO. To your point earlier though about it could be just a section of your site. That one section of your site could cost you your whole site.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah. Doing things wrong will be very expensive. And, it is expensive to do it right. But remember, Google is giving you free traffic, and that's the cost of your free traffic, right?
absolutely.
Why would they give you traffic if you're doing it wrong? But most people kind of feel entitled to free traffic, or I can cheat my way to free traffic. And, given enough money, which is Google, how do you're not going to beat them, right? You have to join them. And
Yeah,
so you should be doing it right all along, because Google isn't, you really don't have a right to rank, you know?
absolutely. I think the entitlement part is so spot on. Yes, general rule of thumb, SEO isn't that complicated when it comes to content. You want to be the expert's expert. So if your peers were going to review your content, other experts would they say, yeah, this is really good, this is helpful. And you do a good job of it for ranking for a lot of SEO terms. You're an SEO's SEO, right? I think that's really cool. But the other part of that is again, it just comes down to the fundamentals, right? You don't have to overcomplicate things. There's
Mhm.
no secret sauce in SEO. SEO is just it's a bunch of different signals, a couple hundred signals that all just work together. There's no such thing as a perfect SEO strategy because it's going to look a little bit different. If I asked some other SEO influencers and myself, what are the top three things that matter to an SEO? Everyone's going to give three different answers. Which one's the best? The data will prove that out, over time. So, yeah, I think that's just, incredible advice. The other thing
There
that,
was a point maybe 25 years ago. There was a site that asked, I think it was Google maybe even early on, asked you, did you like this page?
yeah, Google used to do that.
And uh, you got to vote, right? Yeah, that was a good page. I like that page. And wow, I think that we ought to go back to everybody gets the vote and resurrect Ask Jeeves.
Well, that's what kind of ChatGPT essentially is, right? Or AI, SGE is just kind of like the reinvention of Ask Jeeves.
Right. Yeah, I think that's SGE always reminded me of a 1980s rock band name. Yeah, the experience. Yes, and but fundamentally, um, well, Ask Jeeves has been what in a carbonite block for 15 years or whatever it is. But technically, uh, I think the early on Ask Jeeves was supposed to be like the Star Trek computer, except human powered, because you were looking for an answer. AI technically can do that. But imagine if all you did was voice a question, got an answer. Guess what? You're not clicking on an ad.
True.
That
Yeah.
level wipes out all the revenue for a search engine. So going way back to the question you asked, Google can't afford to take all the answers out, all the clicks out, all the ads out. They fundamentally can't afford to do that.
And on the flip
Now,
side, they can't afford to have organic out of there either, right? So, kind of like I was
right.
saying, you're the SEO of SEOs, but at the same time, if you're going to have really good organic standing, Google is kind of putting the reputation on you as well. They're kind of entrusting you that what you're saying is factual, it is truthful, it is helpful, and as soon as they don't have that, you lose trust in the whole internet. Kind of like to your point earlier.
I years ago when Google came out with this left-hand column called the everything column, we wrote a system tray modification. You ran it, And every time you did a Google search, it would strip off the everything column. Now, the way you do it is you actually write code that modifies the DOM, the document object model. And you can do that. So I think it's only a matter of time till somebody writes a DOM modifier that just takes off everything above organic results.
Why
Just
not you?
strips it off. Well, it occurred to me that I could do that. We have the technology still. We could do that. The problem is, what is the probability of Google hating me when I do that?
I would say somewhere between 9 and 10 out of a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah. So I would hesitate to do that, but it isn't that hard. I mean, we wrote it, we put it up, we distributed it. People were stripping off that column, and it was because everybody hated it that Google took it away anyhow, right? But I mean, like, really, all this stuff. All I want is the organic results. That's all I care about. There's somebody going to write that, publish it, distribute it, strip the DOM. Just go down to organic one. There you are. And I think it's a matter of time until that happens. But the problem is that we don't know, with this level of sophistication that's available, whether in 3 months it'll be better.
Yeah.
We anticipate it being better, but we don't know. And at the quality level it has now, that's not good.
It's also scary too because when you make a big announcement like Google I/O, they didn't just softly release it with a tweet that says like, "Hey, this is live now." When you have that whole event and you have so many, you have the stock price to worry about. It's not like they can just roll it back and being like, "Oh, guys, sorry guys, we made a big mistake," because that would just plummet the stock.
Yeah.
So again, we're just kind of caught in this whirlwind of Google just doing what they think is best, whether they get outside opinions or not, or value outside opinions or not. Everyone knows they get plenty of feedback online. If you just go on Twitter at any given time, that mentions
Oh,
to
yeah, they get a lot of feedback pretty fast.
yeah. So that part's super fascinating. But one thing, Bruce, I've always enjoyed is like you're kind of like you are, the OG or one of them, and people like myself that have came in 12, 13 years ago, we didn't have a ton of resources to learn. But the SEO for Dummies was definitely great. Your blog was always a great resource. I must have read the how to do website silos like 100 times early in my career, and I think it's proven me success to this day. I still leverage that, but it's really cool, right? Because you didn't have someone else to learn from, so you were just hands in there, hands on, hands in there. So I've taken a lot from it, but I know you speak at a lot of these events, and if you go to the topics, it's not so much about case studies and stuff like that, but it's more just advice, kind of like you're on this podcast right now, just advice to the general public, helping SEOs in their career. I know you have a virtual training that you kind of started during the pandemic, which is cool. I definitely encourage people to look into that. But you also have you ever thought about going back to your in-person SEO trainings?
I have. I've actually, this year, I did a course in January and another course at the top of April. Got the whole thing debugged and cranking.
So what's
My next course will be at the top of September.
who's like the target audience for that? Is that like for an entry level SEO? Is that for like an advanced SEO? Is that for non SEOs? Like who's the perfect audience for that?
Well, so we need to understand all of my training is designed to teach you why you do SEO and why certain things work. I do not teach any specific tools. So there's no push a button, get a result. There's no specific tools covered. We teach a person to fish. We
Okay,
don't give them fish.
I love that. And then is it like a 1 day course? Is it a weekend thing?
3-day course. I do it on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and people have to suffer in California. And yeah, I know, you've been out here.
Absolutely.
Um, but this is my book. Now, you may think that it's a little silly, but look how thick it is.
Yeah.
350 pages, full color. I don't know if you can see it, but it's got a lot of color in it. And at the end of the course, it's interesting. When people come to the course, they start and they say, well, what could you possibly talk about for 3 days? And then at the end of the course, they say, is there another add-on? Is there more?
Yeah.
Um, Not that they're dying for more, but because there's so much in it. Um, I have people put a star in the corner of every page where you have a to-do item. And when I'm teaching, I'm watching these people star like every page. It's one of those real learning experiences. So, yeah, I'm a big believer. Well, I know, and some people learn with video. You watch a video and you learn well that way. But there's an awful lot of people that need to eliminate the distractions and sit in a course. And I go all the way there. You can't have your computer on in the course.
Oh, interesting.
Phones on do not disturb. I mean, they're there to learn. And yeah, people love the course. Rave reviews on the course. But it's you take it if you want to learn how to do SEO and why you do SEO. But if you're looking for how do I run Ahrefs or SEMrush or Moz, or how do I run the repair tools, which is all they are. How do I do that? There's plenty of free little courses out there. We focus on making you an SEO, which is an entirely different thing than push a button.
Yeah, no, that's I remember, before the pandemic, they were like pretty well known, like, they're long waiting list, packed house. So I'm excited that you're doing that again for the community. I think that's just really incredible. If the schedule aligns, I'd love to come to take it. I'm always on a quest for knowledge. Yeah, you know that. So that's cool. How can people sign up? Are you taking signups, or is it already sold out? What's the deal there?
We will announce the next class. If they go to our website, under SEO training, there's classroom and online. You can sign up for the online right now.
And if you don't
And
know what the website is, write it down. It's very complicated. It's bruceclay.com.
yeah, that's pretty rough. Now, you can get there by going to SEOtraining.com, a very
SEOtraining.com. Love it.
nice domain name.
Yeah.
For my tools, you can get there through SEOtools.com, a pretty powerful domain name. And for my PreWriter product, it's PreWriter.ai.
PreWriter.ai. All these long tail keywords, how are people going to remember these?
I know it's pretty rough. I mean, like SEO tools, that's a pretty powerful domain name. I bought it straight on GoDaddy in 2000. Nobody had ever picked it up. I just went there and bought it. You
Was it
know,
one of those scenarios where you're like, I had no intention of building a tool set, but now that I have the domain, I guess I should?
yeah, one of those. Hey, I might need this someday. Yeah,
No, that's cool. What so you
it
make your
worked
own
out
SEO?
real well. So I have tools and I have training. I have our PreWriter. It's an amazing product. Amazing product. Um, I mean, it supports languages. It does all sorts of really powerful things. And from a pre-writer point of view, we create the content brief, but then we create a separate document that says, "Hey, writer, pay attention to these things." We actually counsel the writer in a separate document than the actual brief. We
And
write
you have
outlines, we write FAQs. It's a very powerful thing.
Yeah, and since your office is based in LA, there's no shortage of writers for you to source from, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, there's no shortage of writers at all. Um, in fact, there's probably more writers than anybody would ever use going forward, especially with AI. We can take a 4.5 hour process of writing a blog post and cut it to an hour and a half. I mean, that's bottom line money for most companies.
Yeah, exactly. When, especially if you're talking to the CMO level, they operate off of P&L, right? They don't care how you do it. They need to they want a really good quality. They want the results from it. So it's cool. Speaking of, kind of the CMO level, if someone wants to work with Bruce Clay, is do you help like anybody and everybody? Do you have like a certain vertical? Like, is it only e-commerce, only enterprise? Do you help local businesses? What kind of clients does Bruce Clay work with?
We have two levels. If you're local, we have a package for you. It's called Localware, of all things. And then we have our normal packets. Now, understand SEO is very complex. You want to be in the top 10 out of 10 million, you don't go cheap.
Yeah.
But we offer services for everybody. You just fill out the form on our website. We'll be talking to you within a few hours. And yeah, we're easy to reach. We've been around 28 years. That should tell you something in and of itself, I think.
Yeah, you're one of the only SEOs that I know that were actually doing SEO before Google was Google. So I'd say you've been around the block a few times.
Couple.
Bruce, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's always just a privilege and an honor to talk to you. I always learn something new. Anything else you want to wrap up with?
No, I think that I'm a big believer in training, and I think it's bigger than SEO. I think that, hey, I'm an SEO, I want to learn, but I also need my web team to actually want to implement.
Yes.
Training takes ambassadors within the organization and makes them followers. Whereas if you're the only one that knows it, you're not in that meeting, SEO doesn't exist. So you have to have ambassadors. You have to have somebody say something about SEO even when you're not in the room. So training is really big. But I'll tell you, 20 years ago, nobody was talking about schema. I mean, a lot of this. Why would you lazy load a WebP image? They didn't exist. I mean, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what's a canonical? Where did that come from? I mean, what people don't recognize is that SEO got complex. It is far more complex than 28 years ago. And yeah, it takes more time to do it. But you also have 10 million competitors that you didn't have back then, right? So yeah, it's a tougher process. I think training is vital. I think that getting ambassadors to be supportive of you is vital in an organization. And you can't have a rogue guy running around saying, I know better, if they
I
don't.
think I think that's spot on, right? And my goal for this podcast is really to help SEOs advance their careers, and I think that last point you said really stands out to me. The difference between being like a good SEO manager and becoming a director or a VP of SEO is really your ability to champion SEO in your organization to the right people. So
Right.
you're going to be competing in the boardroom against your paid search counterparts, social, CRM, email, creative, branding, web dev, web ops, every marketing channel you can imagine. If you can't enlighten people, because SEO is seen as a black box, doesn't matter. Almost 90% of CMOs just they know they need SEO. They're not going to understand it at a really depth, any kind of depth to the conversation. And I think, sidebar, that's not because SEOs can't become CMOs. I think SEO just becomes a profitable business, and the best ones end up branching out doing their own thing. But again, if you want to take that next level in your career, to SEO manager, to director, to VP, you need to learn how to explain SEO to that C-suite, to be an ambassador, as you call it, or I call it a champion of your cause. And if you can prove with data why SEO is the best decision for the organization, you're going to get that notoriety throughout your organization
Right.
that you need. And the story is really not hard. If you're doing SEO well, you're going to have the highest ROI out of any channel. It's going to be the most
Yeah.
profitable of any channel. You just have to connect those dots for that right audience, and you're going to make your boss look good, which is going to get you that promotion that you're looking for. So couldn't agree more, Bruce.
Shane, thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.